Remember when crypto was really hot and a bunch of banks rushed to service the sector? Well, crypto's not so hot anymore. FTX imploded. Regulators are warning banks not to deal with this stuff. And in turn, banks are not dealing with this stuff. Metropolitan Bank is one of those. They had about 4 or 5, I think, institutional crypto customers. They said, you know what? This is more trouble than it's worth. We're just nuking the crypto aspect of our business. I think Customers Bank here in Pennsylvania, several others sort of rushed to fill this niche. And now we're seeing some, as evidenced by Metropolitan, rushing to exit it. What does it all mean? This is obviously a crypto winter story. The tourists seem to be leaving from the banking sector. I toss it to Will. What do you got?
Yeah, this brings me back to 2020 when we're talking about a lot of different exchanges going to banks and a lot of different banks coming to the crypto sector trying to court new customers, right? Because this was the talk of the town at that time. There's just institutions coming into crypto, banks coming into crypto, everyone wanting to be above board and regulated. And so there was a lot of talk, if you have Coinbase, which bank are you going to end up with and which bank are you going to court and which bank is going to accept you. These were things that dominated headlines in 2020 and 2021. Now we're post-bull, we're looking at the bear market and banks are, maybe that wasn't the best idea to get involved with that industry because there's a lot of hyper-financialization, a lot of Ponzi schemes, and a lot of wreckage and carnage they just don't want to be a part of. Another headline we have here from the block talks about 3 federal regulators issuing warnings to the banking sector about their involvement with crypto. That's the Federal Reserve, the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, and the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation all put out a warning recently saying, maybe don't be involved with crypto right now, or if you are going to be involved with it, make sure you are working with a team that is above board and following regulations. This, of course, comes after FTX, right? Because FTX talked so much about being regulated, talked so much about being compliant, and at the end of the day, they were not. And that's why customers are not whole at this moment. So I think this is a lot of the further FTX contagion. And Jen, just like the last story, we are going to see this over the next 2 years or so, just continue to be the talk of everyone. Throw it up to Wendy, though, for your take.
So it's really frustrating to see, I forget what agency it was that came out and said, don't offer crypto services unless you're working with a very experienced team. This is so frustrating to me because how are people supposed to have experience with crypto regulation when we really don't have any? I'm going to say that again. How are we supposed to work with an experienced team? How's a big business supposed to work with an experienced team if there's no real crypto regulation in play? We have some, but again, like FTX was supposed to be one of the most heavily regulated exchanges, and look what happened. So it's very frustrating for me to see this continue to happen. Regulators have done nothing. And at the same time, I think I understand why the banks are starting to exit from crypto because there's so much risk right now with all the craziness. But at the same time, it's kind of lazy behavior because we know there's going to be, we're pretty positive there's going to be another bull market and they're going to have to go through this entire process again when the bull market comes. However, they could be doing this to help save some money and not get in any trouble. I don't know. I think it's stupid. Zach?
Yeah, I mean, on the commercial side, right, Silvergate also is looking real bad right now. So I guess in the wake of that, it makes sense that some of the smaller players, again, this is a small slice of their business. They make sure that fact is known in the press release announcing their thing. But in the wake of Silvergate also getting hammered in the public markets, a lot of these commercial banks are looking for the exits. That said, like some of the big boys like Fidelity are actually really ramping up their crypto offering, right? They have Fidelity Crypto. They're putting it in your brokerage account. That's long sort of been a dream of a lot of Bitcoin advocates to at least have some version of highly custodial crypto in the brokerage accounts of aspiring retirees everywhere, right? So I think that we have this interesting moment where there's some smaller players in the banking sector who are obviously leaving because there's too much risk, while at the same time, some of the bigger players potentially are doubling down on what their crypto offerings end up looking like. So I think to me, that's sort of the interesting thing is the folks who stay, the folks who go, the tourists, the natives. It's a dynamic that we see play out time and time again with these cycles. And certainly this appears to be the case of this happening again. Jen, any last thoughts on this one?
Yeah, that was exactly my question. What's going to happen to the Fidelities and the JP Morgans? Because I remember not long ago, I was thinking, despite what's happening in this market, the banks are still here. The institutions are still here. And I think that's a really good sign. But now we're seeing these smaller banks boards look at what's going on, looking at what regulators are saying and saying, you know what, this is maybe just a little too risky for me. I wonder what that means for crypto companies. We keep referring to what's going on now as BUIDL season. There are a lot of companies popping up, a lot of companies getting funding from VCs and other sources, and they need a place to put their money. I wonder what that means for them. I recently was opening up a small business bank account, and one of the questions that the bank asked me was, are you involved in crypto in any way? And I said, like, what does that mean? Can you give me more information? The person asking me had no idea what it meant or even what was involved in crypto, and they weren't able to give me any further information on what that meant. And so these like really broad terms, I think are there so that they can pick and choose whose accounts they're going to keep and whose accounts they're not, and whose accounts they're just going to freeze and send you an email and say, actually, we don't offer services for you anymore. But it's really frustrating when the people you're talking to on the other end of the phone actually don't know what's going on. Zach?
Yeah, you like check like the drugs and arms dealing boxes and then like no crypto. And they're like, okay, you're good. But if you check the crypto box, like you're in trouble.
Over for you.
It's not happening.
But literally, couldn't that lead to redlining though? Like, I really feel that could lead to redlining and other issues, because if you're just like, you're looking at the person and the person's like, okay, well, like ask the question that Jen said, like, what do you mean by this? And then they're like, I don't like the way you look, so you're not going to get an account with us because you asked a question about crypto. I feel like that's going to end up being a big problem, and I don't like it. They need to get their stuff together. That's that.
That was a good one. Well, I was just going to say, if you talk to people in financial services, the chatter is that a lot of people see this moment as an opportunity to ensconce themselves, some of the bigger players, into this market, the Fidelities, et cetera, who are seeing this as a moment of opportunity. But again, there's other players who obviously are taking the alternate path.